I think that's the biggest concern of everybody, saying we're going to chase all the good healthcare professionals out of the country because they won't be working for less pay. But that's an assumption
Hmm.
that it would be less pay. Okay. And it's not a bad assumption considering how expensive it would be to actually run a system like this. But ultimately, getting the cost of consult down and the cost of care down is of primary importance.
Welcome, builders, to How Would You Build It? The podcast that dives deep into the dynamic world of startups and product creation right here in South Africa and Africa. This show is more than just interviews. Every week, we sit down with the brilliant minds to provide a masterclass for building digital products amidst the challenges and opportunities unique to our continent. From seasoned founders to dynamic product managers, we uncover the unique stories and strategies behind some of the most innovative digital products being built. So for all the aspiring founders and product builders out there, you'll discover that each episode is a wealth of practical wisdom and local and actionable insights. Make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to our podcasts and connect with us on social media for even more content. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, builders, to another episode of How Would You Build It? Lots of changes have been happening in my career and Reneer's career, and there's lots going on. So we're going to dive into that. Reneer, welcome. How are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, good, Bobby. Been busy. So sorry everyone for missing last week, but we're back and lots of new energy and lots of new stuff happening. So excited to share some of that and also get into some of the crazy stuff that's been happening in South Africa pre-elections.
Yeah, I know. Crazy season, they call it, but you're absolutely spot on. So crazy season in South Africa, crazy season in our personal. So I've just changed jobs for the audience. Quite a transition as well. It wasn't just an easy one, so hence why we missed a week. But really exciting things happening. I'll stay tuned to the LinkedIn updates to find out what's going on, because that'll be going out soon. But Renee, also, like, open letter, going from strength to strength. The subscribers are climbing, and yeah, just how are you feeling about everything?
Yeah, lucky Bobby. We always built towards this 10,000 subscriber mark, which we saw as a place where you can unlock some other opportunities. So we're very close. So we're at 9,500 now. So in the next few weeks, probably before June, yeah, probably early June, we'll be at 10,000, and quite a big milestone for us. And we've been working a lot on a lot of stuff in the background on stuff we want to launch when we hit 10,000. A lot's got to do with communities, so be on the lookout for that. Just working with other founders and building cool things. I think South Africa has
Yeah.
some unique challenges, and we've experienced some of those challenges ourselves and helped other people navigate it.
Mm.
So excited to pull some people together and build stuff together. And
Mm-hmm.
and then also, quite excited that we started to get some partners on board for the newsletter. So we've been working a lot with partners, getting them on board and really driving some value for them through, just providing value for both our audience and our partners at the same time. And through doing so,
Mm.
connect people that could do business together. And then also because of all the writing we do, we get a lot of people that does say, "Oh man, I wish I had someone that can write like that for us or for me as a person or a business, for my personal brand and my company as a brand." So Alvon and I put together a content subscription service called Stream. You can check it out at streamcopy.io. And basically, it's a subscription service to get all your written content, everything from website copy to press releases, blogs, personal LinkedIn posts, posts for your company, to get all your written content sorted out. So you can use that as a way to build brand. And I've personally seen just the value of building a personal brand on the likes of LinkedIn and what that could do for you and the doors
Mm.
it will unlock and the opportunities. So we're extending the service to founders that are too busy to get to it consistently. Because most founders can write, they can tell their stories to a certain degree, but they
Mm.
just don't have time to consistently be putting out content to tell that story. So that's really what we
Mm.
offer in a subscription service. So we've launched that. We've got a first customer on board. We've actually been working with a few customers for some time, but since we've launched the website, we've got our first customer on board, and we're speaking to quite a few others. So and keen to take on a few more other growing startups. If you're a
Mm.
scale up and you're building your brand, that's really what it's for. So lots of work building all of that. And yeah, excited to see where it's going.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I mean, we don't have to dive into it, but I think a lot of people, they see the podcast, they see the newsletter, and it's all nice and shiny, and it's so entertaining and it's insightful and stuff. But I think people don't realize, or companies don't realize, how much work actually goes into creating this content, getting those ideas, turning them into a written form or a video form, and getting it out. So, yeah, I think a lot of companies are not, what's the word? They're kind of not giving it the attention it needs because it takes too much work. And I mean, how many podcasts have we seen start, Renier, where people start, or a news that's like, we're going to do this, it's going to be once a week, and then you see three and then it's gone, right? And it's a
Yeah,
lot of work to do this.
it's well, it's the thing is when you get busy, like it kind of falls a bit in priority, and it's a unfortunately, writing is a 0 or 1 outcome. You either click submit or you don't. So you can
Mm,
put some ideas down, you can have ideas in your head, but you actually don't get through to write it and publish it. Like it's a zero output, right? So
mm,
it's really what we're helping founders just make sure that we consistently put out a 1 output, like a get something going every week,
mm,
be it through personal brand
mm,
or the company or combination. And
mm,
yeah,
mm.
believing it will add a lot of value to the people.
Yeah. And I think what's one last thing is just, I think one big thing is like talking about creating a story, right? So I remember talking to Dave
Mm.
on the podcast, and just in general is like people need to know how to tell the story, and it's not as easy again as you would think. But when you talk about an Uber or whatever it is, it's not just the tech, it's actually the story that comes with what you're building, what the company's doing, what they've come through, all the problems they're solving, etc., etc. So it's like telling a story in a way that captivates the audience, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's what we do twice a week in a newsletter, right? Is we tell a story about a specific startup or a set of startups. So, finding the connections between things to uncover why something matters is really what we're passionate about. So doing that for
Mm,
brands and for people individually is absolutely a natural evolution of what we've been doing anyway. So,
mm,
yeah, and consistently telling that story over a long period of time, you build up so much brand equity, both personally and in as a company, but
mm,
particularly personally. Like if you build a strong brand on the likes of LinkedIn, there's not a lot of people doing it in South Africa, so you can get
mm,
a massive upside in the professional space in South Africa. If
mm,
you invest now and the next 6 months keep going, and you can like I mean you can do it personally. I do my own one. But if you get someone that gives you a bit of help, it just makes
mm,
those weeks where you get a bit busy, just makes it
mm,
easier and
mm.
ensures that there's always
Exactly.
something and you stay top of mind in your professional sphere.
Exactly. Especially when you're running a startup and you're carrying multiple hats and putting
Oh,
out multiple
sheesh.
fires every single day. Who's got time
No
to
one has,
update their LinkedIn and
no
keep
one
their
has time
story
to go
going
out
alive for
counting.
people? But yeah, so if you haven't subscribed, click that button. If you haven't, if you're not subscribed to the newsletter, go and find us. The links are all in the show notes. Please go and find us, and then obviously we'll leave a link to stream in the show notes. So please go and support and see what we're doing. Some exciting stuff there. But talking about stories, Renier, let's dive into some of these stories coming out of South Africa. I mean, if you Discovery Health right now, Momentum, what are you thinking about this new national health insurance bill?
Oh man, it's a thing that's so full of emotion from everyone, and it's really hard to decipher what is just emotion, what is fear, what is people, trying to protect their own interest, what is the actual truth. And I think it's such a complex topic that there's probably truth everywhere. And when prepping for this, Bobby, I thought like we're not going to take a side here. We're going to direct everybody to the Daily Maverick or News 24. Specifically the comments section, that where it gets really fun. You can go voice your opinion. So, but I think something that is very interesting is the fact that we obviously have national elections, which
Mm.
has resulted in us somehow making substantial improvements on load shedding, which in itself is mind-boggling. Because
Yeah, no, so
I'm starting
strange.
I'm starting to think that actually maybe load shedding is something of the past, which is interesting, which then challenges me to
Uh,
think, but maybe the current government we have is actually putting things together, which is yeah. Anyhow, so
yeah.
we've got that going
But,
on, but we do
but
have
but
an
just on that
election,
point,
and
Renier, sorry, just on that point, if you follow, what's his name now? France Crenier, I think his name is Dr. France Crenier. He's saying that the lights are staying on and they're not burning diesel because everyone's saying we're burning a lot of diesel. And he's
Yeah,
saying, no, we're actually got the coal power plants doing what they're supposed to be
to
doing.
work. Yeah.
So
And then I read this
it's
article of
actually
the reason
functioning.
why that's happening is they got the original equipment manufacturers, the OEMs, to come and help them with the critical maintenance. So they flew these guys in and said, hey, come help us fix it. So, that coupled with obviously there's a lot of installed solar and the demand
Mm,
is quite a lot less
mm.
from households
But winter's
and with
coming.
businesses. Yeah, but still we're keeping up. So who knows? Maybe they actually figured it out.
Mm,
But we've got an election coming up, and there's some polls suggesting that we won't have a party that will have a majority, which means we'll have a coalition government.
hmm
And if all things goes well for the democracy, the size of other party participation within a government would be substantial enough to have an input and an impact on decision making and
hmm
accountability of our national government, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
Meaning that should
hmm
the ANC get closer to 40 as opposed to 50, then they'll have to partner with more political parties to form a government,
hmm
which I highly believe would not be with the EFF or the. But anyway, it's not a political podcast.
Time will
We'll
tell.
time will tell. But the interesting thing is there'll be a change of government likely, and likely when that
Mm,
happens, there's a lot of things that will change, and
mm,
obviously also with the election looming. One of the things the ANC government wanted to do is they wanted to push through some of the bills they've been working on before, change of
mm,
government. One which is the NHI,
hmm
and the other one being the Bella Bill, and there's some other stuff also in the works. And so post-election, we might have a new government that even proposes a lot of new policies. So change of landscape, change of how things are going to
hmm
get done. And we'll
hmm
also have a change in the healthcare sector because whether or not this gets implemented in the short term, reality is there are changes coming to the health sector, which one could argue that change is probably good in that space because a lot of people can't afford healthcare.
hmm
And then, also in the education space, some reforms happening there, which will also change the landscape. And these changes of landscapes provides opportunities for entrepreneurs. And that's
Yeah.
really where I think there's some
Mm,
exciting stuff that one can look at and say, okay, wow, you can either build a business or pivot a business and actually benefit greatly from the change of landscape.
mm. And what kind of opportunities do you see? So on this podcast, many times we've discussed the age of AI that we live in now, and a few times we've discussed what it is doing for the healthcare system and the opportunity for people to get some form of insights or care or advice, whatever it is, using AI tools so that they don't have to go now and find that public hospital, whatever it is. So for me, that's like the first like sort of opportunity that exists, right? How do we
Mm.
get medical to the people wherever they are? What other
Yeah.
opportunities are you seeing? Because it's really
Yeah.
tough
So
to
firstly,
to navigate.
firstly, I think cost of care needs to come down substantially, right? So, and I think the challenging thing is you can't. The wrong way to think about it is we should be paying doctors less, right? So
Mm-hmm,
if the cost of care, a large component of cost of care is made up of salary and staffing costs
mm-hmm,
at these facilities, right? And so reducing salaries isn't really the way to go, because what would end up happening is if you even if you cap the ability for a medical professional to earn, typically some of the best medical professionals would, choose to execute the profession in a country that offers them the ability to earn more.
mm-hmm,
And whether or not, some people would say, yeah, from a principal perspective, they should serve, we live in a free market world. We cannot dictate to people like they should stay and accept the pay if they're not happy with the pay.
mm,
So that's really not an option. And I think that's the biggest concern of everybody saying we're going to chase all the good healthcare professionals out of the country because they won't be working for less pay. But that's an assumption
mm-hmm,
that it would be less pay. Okay, and it's not a bad assumption considering how expensive it would be to actually run a system like this. But ultimately, getting the cost of consult down and the cost of care down is of primary importance. And that's where something, if you think about other drivers of cost, like the facilities, right? So if we need to go and build facilities everywhere, then obviously there's a massive cost, not only in capital expenditure, but also in operational expenditure running these facilities. So what kind of work can we do remotely via video call?
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, get the cost of care down, and also the cost of getting care. Like if you can get care, via video call while you're sitting at home, you don't have to travel somewhere to go and
Mm.
get care or queue or do something for that. So I think that's the first one. The second one is just the efficiency of the system, right? So, we pretty much used to a process of some form of diagnostics, either through a nurse or a doctor, and then moving on to, what is the next step in the queue. But perhaps we can get a bit
Mm.
more creative and multi-layer that with a combination of different people and AI to really get people in the right direction. I mean, if it's something that's very simple to diagnose and you don't necessarily need a medical doctor for it, getting 15 minutes of a medical doctor is an absolute waste. So, we could
Mm.
we could layer that better. So operationally, structurally, using technology, using I think there's a substantial amount that can be done to more efficiently get service to people. So I think that's the
Mm.
first major opportunity. Secondary to that is, if there's a cost, to consult and cost per care, and the tax bill covers that, the business cases arise to say, well, there are certain diseases that can be either prevented or treated up to a certain stage before reaching having to, get a medical professional involved. Like, how do we
Mm-hmm.
build tools or disseminate information or do things
Mm.
that would cost money, but could get the cost of service to the general public down simply by just limiting the kind of cases that end up reaching doctors. So that's a very interesting approach as well. And then finally, societal things like, what is the impact of certain things in our society that results in the requirement of medical care? Changes in society's limits on things, or even just grouping of things in a specific way that could reduce the impact on the healthcare system. But these things are all actually, if you look at the NHS, I believe in the UK,
Yeah.
they run a lot of different programs that would want. It's not only a doctor in a hospital. There are a lot of things that run around it to get the overall cost of
Mm.
servicing a certain level of healthcare or to the public. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in that space. Is people to,
Mm.
think about preventative healthcare, if you think about optimization, if you think about staggering services, those kind of things, there's a lot of opportunity, I
Mm.
believe.
Yeah, so I did a quick search as well and found something that is happening in the UK, because I thought that was a good place to look at who's already got this model and what are they doing about it? What opportunities have been created in the UK with this? And one of the things is a diagnostics tool that
Mm,
just got funded, 21 million pounds. And that's just to kind of speed up to understand what is wrong with the patient, right? So they don't
mm,
have to wait in a queue or anything like that to go find out what's the first thing, because it's always that initial thing. Oh, is that the problem? Or, is that the pain you're feeling or whatever it is? Okay, great. It could be this, and this. And
mm,
it's a process of elimination for doctors when they see you, right? So how can we
mm,
speed up that diagnostics to understand what the main causes of your situation is? And you can do that again probably remotely, or maybe not at a
mm,
hospital. There's opportunities that exist using AI, or even I don't know, if I know we talk tech here, but what if we're also like expediting sort of the hardware? Like I
mm,
remember having Savant on once upon a time on our podcast where we spoke about having a hardware element along. I mean, we don't want to do a Theranos, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? There's a
mm.
hardware element to
But
to an
but see, I think
opportunity.
I think, Bobby, what's been interesting about the medical space is for the longest time. And this isn't by anybody doing anything wrong. It's just the nature of how it functioned. It was almost a thing of you do not want to why would you want to get better diagnostics and decrease the amount of consults you get as a doctor, where you can charge a certain fee for a consult and simply have the medical aid
Uh-huh.
pay that fee? Right? So they've never been
Mm-hmm.
forced to, through constraint, to really get creative and go, okay, how do we do this? Now, I know there are a lot of people out there that have been doing amazing work. Sol at Kina and Pete at UDoc, and those guys have been doing great work getting the cost per consult down and servicing new markets that wouldn't be able to go via medical aid.
Mm-hmm.
But for the largest part, like there's been very little incentive for a general practitioner to try and optimize, what his fees are, because there are people that can pay his fees, either through themselves or through a medical aid. And I think
Mm.
this, puts that constraint on them to say, listen, if you are only going to get paid a much smaller fee per consult, now you're going to have to figure out how do you do 20 consults a day more than what you've been doing up until now and still provide a certain level of
Mm.
healthcare quality,
Mm.
and not work yourself to death, which is okay. Let's optimize. Let's consult better. Let's, just streamline the operations. Let's, do
Mm.
all of this stuff in a way that actually helps us get to more people.
Yeah. So I think the question I have then, Rene, is, again, coming from a product management point of view, who do you go speak to, right? So we always talk about how do you find your ideal customer. So who do you think that a founder should go speak to? Should they speak to patients and find out what they're nervous of? Should they speak to doctors to understand what, where their fears are, where their opportunities? Should they speak to hospitals? Like, who do you think a founder should go if they have an idea or looking for opportunity? Who do you think is the ideal sort of segment to look at?
Yeah, so I think at this stage it's probably a good idea to speak to people that are futurists and or really passionate about what's happening in the future, and how current regulations and societal changes and advancements in technology will play into this perfect storm, that and what that would look like, right? And within that
Mm,
perfect storm, what is the opportunity in there? So I think that's probably a good starting point right now, because it's a combination of this legislation, what society, where we at, economically where we at, what AI can do, and all of that in one big concoction would show you, okay, this is likely going to happen, or this is likely how it's going to play out. And once you have that idea, you can start thinking, okay, where is the opportunity here, or the problem that I would like to solve as a founder, right? And at
mm,
that point, you get to your question, which is like, who do you speak to then? And that could be anyone from medical professionals to, patients, to government, even to,
government,
private
yeah.
healthcare facilities. Like, how do private healthcare facilities, it's still unsure exactly how it's going to work. But if a Mediclinic now has a large part of its work needs to go towards, servicing the public and getting money from government for doing that, and then still
Mm,
some other services which are privately paid for. How does that work? How's that going to play out? Which
mm.
also, by the way, leads to a shaking up of the medical aid industry. Like, obviously, everybody said, "Don't cancel your medical aid, please," which I thought quite funny. Imagine canceling your medical aid when you see the president signing. I wish I could do that, save some money. Um,
Early adopters,
but
I'm gonna
early
cancel.
adopters, just go for it. Cancel. Um, but what's going to happen is, I mean, I don't think medical aids are going to disappear, but they're definitely going to change, right? And now that they
Mm,
change, there's an opportunity to come into that space and disrupt, right? So we could say, certain kind of treatments aren't covered by government. What are those treatments going to be? Get an actuary on board, like really develop a new kind of model, find a way to go to market there, maybe find a partner you can go with. You could all of a sudden see, we saw Discovery going from medical aid to bank. You could see banks coming into the space, because now this
hmm.
whole thing is getting shaken up, right? There's reason for everybody to
Yeah.
eventually cancel their traditional medical aid, and now look for a new kind of solution that covers what,
Mm. More
whatever is left.
specific.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and you could see banks, you could see telcos going, cool, we want to
Mm,
offer something in this space. Um, so yeah, that's definitely an opportunity in that space as well, which I think a lot of people can capitalize on and play in. If
mm.
they get beyond the emotion of being upset that this is now happening.
Yeah. Now, let it sink in. I think either way, we're in for a very interesting couple of months. Going back to your initial sort of lead into this conversation, it's like, what does the new government look like? What are the conversations? Who do they call around the table to start making a decision and shape this bill? And who does it affect? So, yeah, I think lots. It's still early, right? And just as you know, the crypto bros are saying this isn't financial advice. Please don't go and cancel your medical aid yet over this
Don't do,
conversation.
but start planning for how to
Yeah,
capitalize and when it's in place.
yeah, exactly. Then the other one that I'll be honest, I was very unfamiliar with is the Bella Bill. Can you just tell me what this is? It's targeting schools, but I'm not familiar with it. What is it, and what are they trying to achieve with it?
Yeah, so once again, for the exact details and the political opinions and different sides to the story, please go check the Daily Maverick. They're awesome. They need your support. I mean, they shut down the other day to prove how much they need your support. Go and support the Daily Maverick. Um, but there's a few things around it that they want to amend how some of the things work around schools. And one of the major issues or points of contention is they want to remove some of the rights of the school governing body for determining what language a school should operate in, and what the criteria is for taking in kids into schools. And I think the heart behind this is really to say, you know what, there are schools that are, operating in languages which do not serve the community that they directly operate in.
Mm-hmm.
As communities evolve over time, you might have a English school that's now in a Afrikaans community, vice versa, or any other African language for that matter. And now they want to change it, but the school governing body is still, predominantly of the other language. Then they
Mm,
can prevent that from happening. But also then, the challenge really becomes like, are you servicing the area around you? So, but
mm,
now obviously a big point of contention, the other side of the debate is saying, well, if the power is centralized, now you have to trust someone sitting in Pretoria or in Cape Town to make a decision about a school in a place where they've never been.
yeah.
So, that kind of which I think both sides of the agenda has some has some interesting points. Other stuff is grade R is becoming compulsory, the preparatory
Mm,
grade before you go to school. It's
mm-hmm,
becoming compulsory, which has a massive budgetary impact. So a lot of schools don't have the facilities, they don't have the teachers, so they're going to have to, get
sure.
that in place.
Mm-hmm,
But I think overall probably a good thing. Some of the other things that there could now be criminal penalties for parents who do not take their kids to school or get them into the schooling system. So, if you don't make an effort to get your kids in school, they want to change that so that becomes a crime. And then lastly, where I think probably the most opportunity is they want to formalize homeschooling a bit. So they want to, you can say, great, I'm doing homeschooling, but now, they want some kind of, they want to regulate it to a certain degree to say, okay, what curriculum are you doing? What's the progress? Just get some feedback on how that's going. Which I know the homeschoolers, it creates an admin burden, and a lot of people are doing a good job at homeschooling, but but ultimately, I think this is probably also a good thing. And one of the areas I think the most opportunity is at, because homeschooling is really growing in popularity. And if anything,
mm,
if one can play a role in helping them, increase the quality and, complying with the new regulation at the same time, that's probably a major
mm.
opportunity right there.
Yeah, so there's lots to unpack there, and it'll be interesting to. We've had Krista, we've had Gabby on in recent weeks and months on the podcast. Talking about edtech and its opportunities and the challenges that they're facing, and just talking about the language barrier. I mean, I think it's this latest version of ChatGPT, the 4 Omni, that actually is making it seamless to do translations where you can actually they did a demo where you could talk to it in one language and it would respond to you in the language that you requested it
Mm.
to do. I think what's, not to always talk AI, but I mean, at the end of the day, like the speed at which this thing is evolving and the opportunities that they're sort of finding in the space. I think Gabby, if I saw correctly on LinkedIn recently, mentioned it. Like this opens up so many doors, you know. So like now you've got this
Mm.
legislation that says let's learn in your current language, but if you speak to like a Mindjoy that's in the space that's saying, well, let's help any teacher be able to teach. Let's just get them to become a facilitator of the learnings with a ChatGPT that can then talk in that language. I think also when I think about languages and being taught in certain languages and stuff, I guess it also comes down to the exams, right? So if you look at your matric exam, it needs to be standard across the country. It's going to be a lot more challenging now to cater for every language, make sure that every paper is written in a language that makes sense, that each learner can understand the question and answer it correctly. The teacher that's marking or the person that marks it is all in line, because in South Africa, we've got 11, 12 official languages. It becomes quite a lot
Mm.
to manage, right? So it's an interesting one that they're trying to bring, but it makes sense though, right? It's about inclusion and making sure that people learn in the tongue that they know best, right? But yeah,
Yeah,
there's opportunities, right?
so the homeschooling is obviously one of them. The other one is which I don't mention, but it's also they're making ECD, early childhood development. Never really had a department that looked after it, or they did, but it wasn't under education. So they want to build a framework of how ECD is going to function, which I think is also a good thing. So in ECD, we covered it in a newsletter. There's a bunch of opportunities in the early childhood development space, and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
building really cool stuff in that space. So there's some opportunity in the homeschooling regulation and the frameworks around that, and then also. Yeah, just generally, I think edtech there's a lot that can be done.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's again with the conversations, there's also the idea of it's becoming more personalized, right? So if you speak my
Mm.
language, and you know the again talking AI, but whatever it is, the tech that comes to the party, it's about creating a personalized learning experience that you can then take to your schools and stuff like that. So
Mm.
that's quite a cool one to look into. So it doesn't seem like the schooling bill is as intense as the home one, but it's still something that people should be looking at. I mean, mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of people looking at the edtech space. Does this ignite opportunity, or is it killing opportunity with this new bill? What is your overall kind of feel towards it?
Yeah, I think less so probably than NHI, but I do think that any kind of constraint, and specifically when it's legislative, creates it forces people to be creative around how to solve those specific issues. And whenever it's legislative, when there's the potential of a fine or criminal prosecution if something isn't done, then
Mm,
people tend to pay money to not go to jail and make sure they comply. So it's one of those things that Y Combinator actually says, like, any business that builds around regulation is probably a good one, because your cost per acquisition is probably going to be way lower, because people are going, cool, I don't want to go to jail, so let me buy this product to help me prevent that. So
yeah.
the change of landscape, really, I think that's probably one of the key points for today. Like, whenever there's a change of regulation and landscape, like, you can get customers that are literally searching for you and going, cool, please help me, simply because, not getting that help could get them in trouble. Another example, by the way,
Mm,
is like FICA, right? So
hmm
if you think about FICA, FICA has become a requirement locally for a lot of different kinds of institutions. They're extending that now with the grey listing. And soon a substantial amount of organizations that are currently not capturing customer data needs to do so to comply with international
mm,
laws around
GDPR
terrorism,
and
fighting
whatnot.
terrorism, and all of that stuff. Not GDPR, which is another one,
Uh,
Poppy Act and GDPR equivalent.
mm,
But it's got to do with the grey listing. Like, we want to get off grey listing. People like lawyers,
okay.
estate agents, they need to technically
Mm.
fee up people they engage with, right? Because the principle
Oh, I
is,
see.
is simple. Like, I could buy a property, and then that is a store of value. I can then move that property over to someone that's up to no good. And if this isn't checked, that person is up to no good, can
Yeah.
get the proceeds of that and commit crimes. So that's really what it comes down to. But once again, it's a regulated environment. So all of a sudden, you can get in trouble, you can get a fine, you can go to jail if you do X, Y, Z. So people go, I don't want to do that. Let me buy a solution that helps me comply. And then if you build that solution, then obviously, it's a bit easier
Yeah.
to get customers.
Yeah.
So in the same way, we look at
Yeah.
NHI, we look at the billable, we go, cool, there's some stuff that's going to be put in place that will enforce a way of working, but that way of working will
Mm.
introduce pains, it will introduce reporting overhead, it will introduce, all kinds of stuff that needs to be adhered to, and what are those things?
Mm.
Once we know what those things are,
Mm.
can we do that cost effectively and then
Mm.
start distributing from there? So great
I like
opportunities.
that. Yeah, I like that. I like that, especially with teaching. And I was just trying to think like what are the qualifications needed for an early stage. So if we need to now, whatever the number is, thousands of teachers to teach grade R because of the now, requirement, what does it take to get those teachers ready? And when does this come into play, right? When are they planning to actually, when does it get enforced? Next year? Do you know?
No, it's not clear. They're trying to get it signed before the election. I think it was passed by
Mm.
the National Council of Provinces, by 8 provinces approving it and one
Yeah, I wonder
abstaining.
which one didn't.
Yeah. um, which is, they don't know what's going to happen in the election. NCOP might look completely different post elections, and the
Mm.
ANC might have some say as little as 4 of the provinces. So if they only have four
Sure,
of the
that change
provinces and
that
you wanna pass a bill, that changes the game.
wow. That is
So
actually, I didn't even think of that. That is fascinating.
yeah, so
Wow,
the
things are going to get
province,
interesting.
no, it's definitely. I mean, even if the ANC ends up getting 50, there's a 50%. There's a reasonably good chance that they might not have the majority in likely 4 of the provinces. KwaZulu-Natal,
Sure.
Gauteng, Western Cape, and the Northern Cape. And
Mm.
if only if that happens, they're already spread a bit thin when it comes to the NCOP. So passing laws through the
Mm.
NCOP is going to be way different. Yeah, and there's a multi-stage process. So you go, there's consultation, etc. But there's 2 different approval
Mm.
levels. One the national government and one the council of provinces. So even if on national government level you have a majority, not having a majority in the NCOP could make things a bit more tricky.
Sure. Exciting and interesting times up ahead, that's for sure.
So go
Didn't think
vote.
about it the way you just laid it out. Hey,
Everybody should go vote.
what did you say? Go
Everybody should
vote.
go vote.
Absolutely. Go and vote. Yeah, go and vote. Yeah, I think that's why I think just staying on the pulse, reading the open letter, watching how would you build it keeps people on the pulse of things and to know where the opportunities exist and where your next move should be. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Renier, thank you very much for that. A different flavor. We haven't done one of these in a long time, so it was nice to just kind of bounce off a topic and sort of get into the weeds of it. So thank you very much, and yeah, thanks, viewers. And if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and do all those good things. And we'll see you next time. Renier, thank you.
Lekker, Bobby. Have a good one.